Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Resideo webinar session, where we are going to talk about our T-Series thermostats troubleshooting and navigation. My name is Fatima Guevara, and I am part of the Resideo training team. And on behalf of all of us, I'd like to welcome you to our training session today. This training today is very interactive as we will share some new features that are going to allow our attendees to interact with us as we walk through our presentation. So now thank you for making time to be with us today. Before we get started with our technical presentation, I'm going to cover a few items. Information on our upcoming webinar sessions are posted on our website at resideo.com backslash webinars. You can find upcoming webinars by searching under the Discipline tab by the title HVAC or Plumbing on the left-hand side of the search bar, so be sure to register. You can find the recorded webinar sessions on this same website by selecting On Demand on the right-hand side of the filters. For those contractors joining us for today's live session and you are interested in earning one NATE continuing education credit, there are a few things to note. If you provided your NATE ID on your registration form, we will submit those details to NATE and we don't need any additional information from you at this time. If you did not provide us with your NATE ID on your registration form for this webinar and you would like to receive credit for attending our live session, then we ask you to email your first name, last name, NATE ID, and the date of the session you attended to homes.university@resideo.com within 1 week from today. This information is submitted to NATE 1 week following the close of each live session. Any request sent outside of 1 week from this live training cannot be processed. As a reminder, we can only process requests for NATE credits when you attend the live webinar sessions, and we are unable to process requests for watching a recorded version of the trainings. If you would like more information about the NATE program, please visit their website at www.natex.org. One quick note before we begin the technical presentation, all attendees are muted. However, if at any point during the technical presentation you would like to ask a question, please use the Q&A feature found in your Zoom webinar controls. We are reserving the last few minutes of our time today to answer your questions. So as we progress through the technical training today, please be sure to ask your questions in the Q&A feature so we can address it at the end of today's session. Before I turn the presentation over to our trainer, I wanted to remind you all that we have added some polling features into the presentation, and we would like for you to participate. I will put the link in the chat for all of you. Make sure to open the link in your new browser window or on your cell phone. There will be indicators throughout your session today where our presenter is going to ask for your feedback. So pay attention for those instructions so you can participate. So now we're going to turn over the presentation to Isaac Rovner and Chris Levy, who are part of our technical training specialist team. So Isaac, take it away.
Hello, thanks for joining us again. My name is Isaac Rovner. I'm a field trainer at Resideo, joined alongside of me, Chris Levy. And we are happy to have you here and join us today to hopefully give you some useful information and material that will help you in your day-to-day jobs there. So what we're talking today is we're talking T-Series, right? T-Series thermostats, app navigation, and troubleshooting. Today, we're going to kind of cover the basics of T-Series, a little bit of the compatibility of our T6 and T10 Pro thermostats. We'll talk about app features. We'll do a live demo, talk a little bit about smart home, Total Connect Comfort integration, and some common troubleshooting practices you can try in the field. So let's get going. Now, I want to start this presentation off by asking everybody just a quick question here. And if we go to pollev.com/T-Series, you should be able to interact with this poll. So when we're talking about smart home, T-Series, thermostats, troubleshooting, and whatnot, what do you find most challenging? Is it the smart home integration, which I see one response up here now, app navigation and features, or Wi-Fi connection and setup? Now, they each might present their own challenges, but the good news is that we have ways to address each of those and get through the entire process to make sure that we have a happy customer. Great. I see a lot of responses. So we'll focus on all three. And in future presentations, we might even have more information regarding smart home and other topics that might be useful as well. So let's get going here. Great responses. Awesome. So to kind of preface the connection path and talk about connecting, I want to talk about the pathway. So whether it's a T-series smart thermostat or one of our legacy Wi-Fi thermostats, they generally have three basic steps: thermostat setup, Wi-Fi connection to the local Wi-Fi network using a home wireless router, and then the third step is registration, adding the app or device to the cloud, right? And registering that device using our Honeywell Home App or Total Connect Comfort platform. And again, regardless of the thermostat, whether it's a legacy model or one of our new Honeywell Home thermostats, they'll generally follow the same path, but it might look slightly different depending on the model that you're using. So let's talk about what we're going to actually focus on today, which products, right? We're going to talk about the T10 thermostat and the T6 smart thermostat. Now, our T10 Pro is our latest Wi-Fi thermostat, which uses RedLink wireless indoor sensors to monitor humidity, temperature, and to sense motion. Our T6 is our trusted thermostat as well. And that thermostat is just a little bit more basic, but allows us to use some of the same great features. Our T6 comes in two different models, the TH6320 and the TH6220. Now, the TH6320 is going to have similar compatibility as far as heating stages for conventional and heat pump as the T10, while the TH6220WF is not going to be compatible with as many heating and cooling stages. Our T6 smart thermostats are compatible with heat pumps or conventional systems, and we'll actually have more features as well, such as ventilation, which our T6, our 6320WF is capable of running. Our T10 is going to also offer IAQ compatibility, so we can wire a humidifier or a dehumidifier or a ventilation directly to the thermostat. So you have there's a lot to offer with either model. Depending on the application, we'll let you decide what's best. Now, before we get into app connectivity and troubleshooting and whatnot, let's just talk about the basic installation, right? Step one of that three-part process. Now, the most important thing to remember is that all Wi-Fi thermostats require that C common wire. And depending on the thermostat they're using, whether it's a T6 6320WF or TH6220WF, the compatibility may differ, and you may or may not use specific wiring terminals. For example, we know that with our 6220, we're not going to be able to use ventilation. So we're going to need to, we're going to actually have to use like a 6320WF there. Regardless of what thermostat you're using, they're going to use the UWP, our universal wall plate. And this is a great new design that we use, which eliminates the use of any screwdrivers or additional tools to get the wiring inserted. It's really nice, easy push terminals. No screw in required. So now that we talked about the installation and a little bit about what our T-series thermostats have to offer, let's talk about our Honeywell Home App. Today, we're focusing on connectivity. So our Honeywell Home App is used to monitor and to control the thermostat remotely. Unlike our Total Connect Comfort platform, our Honeywell Home App is purely app-based. So you'll need a mobile device to use this application. Now, the current app version is going to depend on what type of device you're using, but it's always important to make sure that you're using the latest app version. That might look different on iOS or Apple versus Android. Android, it may vary depending on what model Android device you're using. We'll also talk a little bit about Runtime. This is one of our newer features incorporated into the app, which allows us to monitor trends in runtime and sort by day, week, month, or year. We're also going to talk about scheduling, whether you're using Geofence, time-based, or you're using the thermostat as a non-programmable manual thermostat. And the last thing that we're going to talk about is Wi-Fi legacy thermostats using our Total Connect Comfort platform and integrating them and importing them into the Honeywell Home App. So for the next part, now that we've introduced the thermostats, talked a little bit about the app, let's go ahead and set up a thermostat. Now for this, I want to go ahead and set up one of our T10s. So I'm going to shift the screen over here and let's set up one of our T10 thermostats. All right, so as we can see here, we have an iPad on the left and our nice brand new T10 thermostat on the right. To get started, we'll want to set up the T10 thermostat. Now, this thermostat is already configured for a conventional forced air system. So the only thing left is to connect to Wi-Fi and to register using our app. So let's say at the time of this install, we didn't have a Wi-Fi connection, but now we're ready to connect. Let's go ahead and connect this thermostat to Wi-Fi. I'm going to hit the 3-bar icon at the top, the bottom of the screen there. I'm going to scroll down until I see Wi-Fi. And then I'll select Choose Network. And here it should begin to search and locate local networks within range. Now, it's important to note, if we're using a T6, that thermostat is only compatible with 2.4 gigahertz networks, while our T10 is compatible with 2.4 and 5 gigahertz networks. So it's important to identify the network that you're using even before you start getting connected to know compatibility and to ensure that the product is going to work with the network that you're selecting. Most homes will utilize a dual band router, which broadcasts both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz in one network. These networks can also be separated or, like I said, combined into one network. Let's take a look here. And the T10 will actually tell you if it's a 5 gigahertz network or a 2.4. So I'm going to go ahead and find my home network. I'm going to select the network name and then hit connect. And then it's going to prompt me to enter in the password. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the password in here. Now it is case sensitive, so you want to make sure that we're using lowercase or uppercase when necessary. Once we have the password in there, we're going to want to hit next, and that's going to prompt us and bring us to a connection screen. And the thermostat will say connecting. Now at this point, this may take a few moments. So we want to make sure that our iPad or the device that we're using to pair is all ready to go. The first thing we want to make sure is that the device that we're using is actually connected to the same network that we connected the thermostat to. So I go to Wi-Fi and make sure it's connected to the same network that I selected for the thermostat. And great, looks like we are connected to the same network, and our thermostat says success, which means that it's successfully connected to that Wi-Fi network we selected. I'm going to tap OK on the thermostat, and it's going to display some network information listed here. Now it's normal for it to say not connected to cloud, because at this point, we've only completed the second step in our process. Now, if we remember, there's 3 parts, right? The initial setup, the connection to the local network, and then the registration to the cloud. So let's get step 3 complete here. For the T10, it's very simple and easy to pair with the app. I'm going to open the Honeywell Home App. If I don't have an account, I want to create an account. And we'll log into the app here. When we're in the main page of the app, we should see Add Device. And if we have a location created, it's going to look something like this. If the location is not created, the only option you'll see is Add Device, which is totally fine. Let's go ahead and hit Add Device. I'm going to select the T9 or T10 Pro. And then I'm going to select the location I'd like to add it to. And if I'd like, I can easily select here to create a new location or add it to an existing location shown above. Let's add it to an existing location. I'm going to click Home. And then again, as long as the thermostat is on the same network as my device, we should be good to go. Now the thermostat and the device I'm using are kind of looking for each other to pair and sync. And again, as long as they're on the same network, the device should be able to find the thermostat. And it looks like it found the device here. It will confirm by telling us the name of the thermostat. And it'll ask us, would you like to add this device? Let's go ahead and tap yes. And next you'll see it prompts us for a verification code. And the verification code is showing on the thermostat itself. Let's type that in. We'll see here, we can kind of see the registration screen pop up on the thermostat and on our iPad. This can take a couple moments, but at this point, we're actually contacting the cloud and registering the device within the Resideo cloud. We'll get a success on the thermostat, hit next, and that will bring us back to the menu and we can return to the normal display of the thermostat. Meanwhile, the app might take just a few moments longer, but will eventually catch up and display success as well. I'm going to hit next, and it will prompt us to geofence. And now with geofencing, this is a great feature that we've been able to refine over the years. It's going to use the location of the mobile device to determine if the user is home or away and set it to a home or away set point depending on their location. Let's go ahead and get this set up. I'm going to hit next, and it will allow me to create a custom radius. I can pinch it and drag it to increase or decrease the size of my geofence radius. I can even click the arrow on the top right here to update the geofence center. Now, when we originally set the geofence, it's going to use the location address that was inputted when the location was created. Now, I'm not at home right now, so if I hit update, it's going to update to where I'm currently located. It's important to know that we're selecting the radius around the actual home location rather than, let's say, we decide to change the radius when we're at work or at another job. So in this case, let's say we're moving our system and thermostat to this particular location. In that case, I'll hit save. And it'll prompt me to select my home heating and cooling set points. Now with the T10, it's great. I can even select priority if I'm utilizing those indoor wireless sensors to prioritize certain rooms, whether I'm selecting active rooms or selected rooms. I can even customize the fan mode to auto circulator on during that period of home. Hit next. Similar steps for away temperature, selecting the temperature set points, the priority, and the fan mode. Once I have my away setting configured, I'll hit next again. And lastly, it'll prompt me to select my sleep setting. Now, my sleep setting is optional. I can either have this enabled or I can skip it by pressing the skip button. The sleep setting is going to activate as long as the users, or at least one user, is home. Hit next, and it will give me a summary of my geofencing schedule. Hit next again, and it will save it and enable that geofencing for that device. You may see something that says demand response. Depending on the utility company, some utility companies provide additional credit and rebates to enable demand response on that particular device. Let's go ahead and hit skip for now. Then we'll hit done. And my thermostat is added and my geofencing is enabled. Next, let's take a look at, maybe we don't want to use geofencing, or maybe we want to switch to a time-based schedule. Very easy to do so. I'm going to click family room for my thermostat device name, click schedule, and then click options on the top right, and I can turn schedule off, switch to a time-based schedule, or keep my geofencing. Let's keep my geofencing here. I'm going to hit X. I'm going to kind of back out to the main location page, And let's talk about one other important thing when it comes to geofencing. Let's talk about added users. So in order for geofencing to work properly, we need to make sure that each user has their own account and is added to the location. To do so, we'll press the 3-bar icon in the top left. And that should give us to a menu here where we're going to actually add users. Now it seems like I kind of froze up here. I'm going to actually just force close this out here and reopen it. Good troubleshooting step if you ever get stuck there. And let's try to add some users. So I'm going to hit the 3-bar icon again, go to users, and I can hit invite user by typing in their email address and then hit send. And that will send an invite to the user and allow them access to that particular location. Now, users are added to the locations, not devices. So it's important if you have multiple locations, you add the appropriate users to each location. Also, if you prefer, you can put your business email in here as well, so that as a contractor, you're alerted when there might be a possible issue when it comes to alerts, such as high temperature, high or low humidity, and whatnot there. Any users that are added will receive alerts and also be geofencing. So it's important if they are geofencing, we just add the users that are plan on actually participating in the geofence. So let's back out here, go back to our main display, and let's talk a little bit more about features. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my presentation, and let's talk about some of the app features here. So hopefully that live setup was a little bit beneficial there and show you kind of just how easy it is to connect that T10. So let's talk features. One feature that we should be used to already is smart alerts. This feature will allow us to be alerted when there's a high or low temperature or humidity alert. So to enable these, we're going to press the ear icon or the cog wheel in the top corner in the right. We're going to click Manage Alerts and enable indoor temperature alerts by sliding that toggle. We can also enable email notifications by sliding that second toggle right below it. Next, we can actually customize the alert by clicking Alert for this range and setting a custom level for when we want to be alerted. So let's say we want to be alerted below possibly, 45. And we want to be alerted when it's above 80. Great. So now we have our temperature alerts. We can scroll down and enable humidity alerts and also configure email notifications for that as well, and set our custom alerts there for humidity. Now we're going to receive these alerts via push notification or via email. Now you have the option to get a push notification, or actually, I'm sorry, that's by default, you will receive a push notification just like a text message or like, any other notification from another app. Email alerts will actually go straight to your inbox and allow you to be alerted via email. So it's great. We can kind of get ahead of possible issues and be alerted when something might not be going quite right. Let's move on. Let's talk about filter reminders. So another pretty basic feature, but really intuitive to use. So what we can do here is press the arrow on the top left, which is going to bring us to our main display of our app. We're going to hit the 3-bar icon in the top left corner, and then we're going to select filter reminder. Once we select filter reminder, we can enable this toggle switch and select the duration. Now, both our T6 and T10 can either use runtime or calendar days for filter reminders. We'll set when it was last replaced, and it will automatically populate when it needs to be replaced again. And just like temperature alerts or smart alerts, it will prompt us with a push notification or email alert if we have that enabled. Next, let's talk about vacation. So when we're on the go and planning a vacation, good thing to do is check off the list is actually enable a vacation setting. So to do so, what we're going to do is kind of similar to how we set filter reminders. We're going to select the arrow on the top left, select the 3-bar icon in the top left corner again, and we're going to go to vacation. And this allows us to set a custom time when we leave and when we plan on returning. So we'll set our vacation times when we plan on leaving and when our arrival is back home. And then we'll be able to select custom temperatures we'd like for that time. Now, it will maintain the set temperatures that we enable until that period expires. So when our vacation's over, it will automatically resume any geofencing, time-based scheduling, or go back to being non-programmable if that's how it's set. And it will revert to its last known set point. With vacation, we can also customize the fan setting, as you can see there, as well as priority. Great, so we set vacation. Let's look at one of our new features, Runtime. Now, Runtime is going to allow us to view just that, system runtime and heating or cooling within the app. To do so, on the main page of our app, let's select the device that we'd like to view runtime. And then, as easy as just selecting the runtime icon in the bottom right. We can easily view by day, week, month, or year. Really nice, clean, easy to read graph. We'll show orange for heating and blue for cooling. And a nice, easy to read display there. Now, I think this is a great feature because we can kind of look at trends over time and notice where we might have some issues occurring, or we might need some additional equipment or attention to that system if we're seeing longer run times than usual. Perfect. So that's runtime. I want to next move to Total Connect Comfort. So one thing that we're really proud of is integrating our legacy thermostats within our new Honeywell Home App. So all you need to do so is to have the Honeywell Home App downloaded. Once you download the Honeywell Home App, it'll be as easy as just adding a T10 like we did with the demo. We'll select Add Device, and this time we'll select Import from Total Connect Comfort. Next, it will prompt us with 2 additional steps. Select the location and to enter your user credentials for Total Connect Comfort. Hit Next. We'll select the location. In this case, I already have a location home created. Or down at the bottom, I can select Create a New Location and create a new location for this device that I'm adding, or multiple devices that I might be adding. Lastly, it will have us enter in our username, which is our email address for Total Connect Comfort, and password. And then it will allow us to select the devices that we have added to our Total Connect Comfort account. Now, one note, if you're using multiple locations, you have to repeat this step multiple times, as we only can add to one location at a time. So if you do have a customer with multiple locations, they'll have to repeat this process twice or more, depending on the amount of locations they have. We're here to help if you need help with this, but as you can see, it's pretty intuitive and easy to do, and we've had a lot of success. Now let's move on away from app features. Let's talk a little bit about smart home. So if you go to pollev.com and open your poll back up there, I want to know, what's your preferred smart home partner? Is it Amazon, Alexa? Is it Google Home? Is it HomeKit? Maybe it's something else that we don't have listed here. The good news is all three major smart home partners are compatible with both of our T10 and T6 thermostats. Great. Love the responses there. Looks like maybe we have some more Android users than iOS, but that's okay. Great features you can do with each one. And each will allow us to enhance the app and improve the features that we already use. So like I said, all three are compatible with our T-Series lineup. Comes to our Wi-Fi connected products. We also have a lot more that are compatible that are not listed here. And to view a complete list of compatible smart home partners, we'll just invite you to go to Resideo.com and visit our partner page, which will show the list of complete compatible partners with the device that you're using, whether it's a T6 or maybe one of our legacy Wi-Fi thermostats. Again, great way to enhance the product and offer more to your customers, more features, so they can get the most out of their product and the experience. Let's move on to troubleshooting. Now, we already talked a little bit about geofencing, and I think this is a great kind of part to first talk about when it comes to troubleshooting the app, troubleshooting geofencing. The first thing is to make sure that we have all of our added users. As we were looking there with the demo, we want to make sure, as I said, that we have the added users for each location that are going to be participating within that geofence. The next thing is check the radius. Like you can see there, the radius was slightly different from where I was actually located than my thermostat where it was installed. So it's important to make sure the radius is correct, right? If the radius is in a different location, you're not going to geofence properly. We also want to make sure that radius is not too large or not too small to make sure it fits the lifestyle of that customer. And lastly, location settings. It's important to make sure that location services are always enabled for each user and device connected to the account. And make sure that permissions are always enabled. So now that we talked a little bit about geofencing, we're going to kind of shift gears here. Let's just talk about common connectivity troubleshooting practices that we can try. First, mobile devices. Now what would be ideal if we can go to each job and install if we have another device handy. Now, sometimes the customer will have another device we can use, or we might have a tablet and a phone. It is great to have multiple devices, so in case there's an issue with one, we have a backup to go to. So let's say it's not working well with Android. Maybe we don't have the correct operating system, or we have an older Android device. Well, if we have a tablet that's maybe running a newer OS, we'll be ready to connect there. Or, if there is maybe an issue with the device itself, we can kind of isolate the issue by trying on another device to make sure that it's not the device, or isolate the issue from the thermostat itself to see if the same issue occurs on a different device. And again, that will help us further isolate the issue and identify the possible fix that we need to incorporate. Wi-Fi routers. Now, the T6 is compatible with 2.4 gigahertz networks, while the T10 is compatible with 2.4 and 5 gigahertz networks. So it's important to identify the router that you're using and the type of network you're using before we install. It's great to even open your device up and look at the list of available networks before we attempt to connect the thermostat to make sure that we're seeing the correct device, or the correct network in our list of available networks there. Now, we also want to make sure that we're using a home Wi-Fi network, as our T-Series Wi-Fi thermostats are designed to be connected to a home wireless router. So if we run into any light commercial applications where we're using enterprise networks or a different type of network, we might run into some issues there. So again, it's important to identify what network we're using before we start the connection. And lastly, I want to talk about hotspots. Now, this is kind of a cheat code. Hotspots are going to allow us to easily troubleshoot and identify any issues if we have a problem connecting. Let's say I'm not able to connect to my network here in the office. I could try a hotspot, and then I would be able to isolate the issue and see whether it's a connection issue with the router or it's something else related possibly to the thermostat or to the device. Using a hotspot allows us to isolate the issue further if there are any connection issues. We know some networks, for example, let's say we are able to connect to a hotspot, but we're not able to connect to the home network. That would tell us that maybe that network has a security setting or another feature that we need to adjust in order to make the thermostat connect and communicate. Now, there is a difference between mobile hotspots and hotspots using a desktop or a laptop computer. Now, if possible, we always want to try using a mobile hotspot using a cell phone or a tablet that's connected to cellular data. And to kind of wrap up, one of the final troubleshooting steps, which is really important here and really great to have in your back pocket, is checking the IP addresses. So what is a valid IP address? And what am I even talking about here? So when we connect to a thermostat to Wi-Fi, it'll obtain an IP address. And depending on that IP address, we'll be able to identify whether it's able to register or not and get to that third and final step of the connection process and registration. I'm going to go ahead and switch cameras here, and we're going to go back to the demo. Now let's take a look. Let's say we want to connect, and let's say we're already done connecting and we want to check to see if we have the IP address that's needed to actually register online. Now, all of our new Wi-Fi thermostats are able to show and display the IP address. For the T10, we're going to hit the menu at the bottom of the screen there. I'm going to scroll down to Wi-Fi. And right when I click Wi-Fi, it will give me the IP address. And if it starts with that 192.168, we know it's a valid IP address. If we're seeing 192.254 or possibly no IP address, then we know it's an issue with the router itself, and we won't be able to register and connect to the cloud. So it's important to make sure that we have a valid IP address if we are having any registration issues or connection issues. Again, if the IP address is invalid, it's an issue with the home wireless router. If the IP address is valid and we're having connection issues, it's either an issue with the cloud sync or device itself, whether it's the thermostat or the device that we're using to communicate. And again, depending on the thermostat we're using, we should be able to view the IP address simply by going to the Wi-Fi connection or the device information. All right. So let's go ahead and focus back to our PowerPoint here. And if you want to go ahead and write that down again, because these are some great numbers to have in your back pocket. If you want to write down the valid IP addresses and the invalid IP addresses. Now, the other numbers that we see are next to valid. It just depends on what device we're using. So if it's a T10 or T6, we're always going to see that 192.168. But if it's a different device, we might see a slightly different IP address listed there. If we were to call technical support with the Wi-Fi connection issues, this is going to be one of the first questions that our representative is going to ask. What is the IP address? Is it valid? Is it invalid? And from there, we can figure out how we're going to troubleshoot and resolve the issue at hand. So, like I said, they're a great tool to have. And it's something that our reps use every day when we're connecting and troubleshooting connection issues. So hopefully that's gives you a couple tips to go out there with troubleshooting. Again, to use hotspots to identify the type of router, identify the mobile device, have multiple devices, make sure your devices are up to date, not only the OS on the device, but also the app version as well. We covered some of the features and we covered a little bit of the basics there in troubleshooting, and hopefully this information will help you with your future endeavors. So now we'll open it up to question and answer.
Thank you, Isaac, for walking us through this presentation training today. If you're interested in finding more information about the products and accessories covered today, you can find that information on the new Resideo Pro website. As a quick reminder, if you have any questions on what was reviewed today, please take a few moments and enter that information in the Q&A feature found in your Zoom controls, and we will do our best to address your questions in the time we have remaining. Now we're going to transition to answer some of your questions that were posted during the training session.
Hey, Isaac, I see a couple questions on here.
Yeah.
The first question we have is asking about our thermostats and if they're compatible with IFTTT, if this, then that, for those that aren't familiar. I'll take that. The IFTTT is something that I've played with myself and have used, and our devices are compatible with that program or that app. We have another question. I don't know the answer to this one. Maybe it's one that you can address, Isaac. It says, it's asking about the internet protocol. Are we compatible with IP version 6?
I believe so. And I'd want to check with one of my specialists, but to my understanding, that's the latest communication there. I believe we are. I would have to just double check that one. I'd be happy to get back to Kate on that question.
My gut would have to also agree with you. Doing a little bit of my own research, it looks like IPv6 was, or my bad, IPv4 was 2012. I'm not sure what date IPv6 came out, but I'm assuming that we are compatible, but that is something that we can refer back to in the Q&A via email.
Certainly circle back there. I'm 99% sure we are compatible, but I can definitely circle back on that one as well.
The next question we have is, can you expand on geofence options of the remote sensors, and are they motion activated?
I'd be happy to answer this one here. Yeah, so.
Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Everything shifted on me. The questions got goofy. Can you expand on geofence? What is it? Is it just not a term? It's just not a term I'm familiar with. So a little bit more discussion on geofence. My bad.
Yeah, no, great question. So geofencing is just using your geolocation. So we know nowadays that most of our customers have smartphones. Now, my kids even have smartphones. So it's crazy, how linked in we are and connected we are to the world. So assuming that we have smartphones, or all users have a smartphone, geofencing is going to essentially use your location of your device, because you always carry your device with you, right? Typically, it's a headache if we leave our cell phone at home. So depending on where you're located or where your device is located, it will know if you're home or away, if you're outside that geo radius or within that radius. If you're outside the geofence radius, and this would have to be for all devices, so if all devices are outside of that bubble or that circle, it's going to assume that nobody's home, and it will set an energy saving temperature and our away temperature set point. Now, when the first user arrives back in that circle, back in that radius, it will activate a home temperature and start heating or cooling the home to a comfortable temperature. So again, just uses the device's location, whether you're using an iPhone or Android, to know whether you're home or away, and to set an ideal set point based on one or the other.
I like to refer to that as, it's kind of like last one out, shut off the lights. So if you have multiple people in your household that are all tied into your geofence, the last person to leave your boundary will initiate the away from home temperature, and the first person to come back inside that boundary will make the change to the occupied temperature to get the home up to or down to the more comfortable set point temperature. Our next question is in regard to the T10 and the functions and options of the remote sensors, and specifically, are they motion activated? That is one of the cool features with the T10 RedLink sensors is you can, if you buy the thermostat packaged with one sensor, then you have a sensor in the box. you can actually add up to 20 sensors to that thermostat. And with that, you can do a lot of neat things. You can create a motion-based temperature set point adjustment. You can also use a schedule-based temperature adjustment. So a lot of times I like to explain to customers that I'm working with that sometimes homeowners may not necessarily want to set back their temperature, but they may want to have a sensor schedule. So for example, you could say motion during the day when there's not a lot of people home. So if someone happens to be home that day, then you're sensing and averaging from the spaces of the home they're using. But then at night, let's sense based on time, and say at a certain time prior to bedtime, we start sensing from and averaging from the bedrooms, and maybe during the morning hours, the kitchen and the living space, depending on how the airflow throughout the home is and how even the temperatures are. Another thing that I oftentimes see and hear people doing is dividing the home in a quadrant. Like if you get solar gain in the mornings, then we sense from that side of the house in the morning, and then the other side of the house in the afternoon, for example.
Yeah, great information there to have for sure.
We have a question asking about our T6 and T10 compatibility with any and all communicating 19 and 20 SEER split systems. Do you want that one, Isaac, or I can?
Yeah, I'll let you take that one, Chris.
So is the easy answer is if your equipment has the ability to use a standard operating thermostat, then our T6 or T10 will work with it. If you are dealing with a very high-end piece of equipment that requires an OEM communicating system, which this sounds like it might be, then that would not be the case, and you would sort of be stuck with whatever your OEM provides that is compatible to that specific piece of equipment.
Absolutely.
Our next question was kind of covered, but we'll just answer it real quick. Does the T10 have a motion sensor, occupancy sensor on the thermostat itself? It does not. So the thermostat operates as a temperature sensing point, but it does not use motion on the stat all by itself.
Yeah, and one thing I could add there, Chris, as well, I think what might be useful to some of our audiences, especially when we're talking about geofencing, the sensors with the T10 are not going to be used for geofencing. It's just going to be used to, make sure our rooms are the comfortable temperature that we'd like. So we can't use our sensors for occupancy when it comes to geofencing, but they will sense occupancy if they do detect motion, and that's used for priority temperature sensing.
All right, and our next question is in regard to our app data gathering, and you had talked earlier about runtime and the ability to see that graphed out in history. The question is, any plans to include more history data other than runtime in the future?
Yeah, at this point, we're definitely working on new features. We don't have anything to announce right now, but our app is something that we continue to enhance and improve. So definitely appreciate the feedback there on, additional features that we might want to incorporate in the future. But yeah, right now we're just focusing on, we are focused on building new features and enhancing our app. So yeah, it's totally on the roadmap there. Just I don't have any specific dates or features at this time to share.
Yeah, I can add to that. I know that there's a lot of irons in the fire with regard to using that data to provide more features and capabilities for you, the dealers, and our homeowners. The next question is asking about the default parameters for upstage timer or upstage parameters, default upstage parameters for heat pump settings. That is a great question. I don't know what the default upstage parameters are until I actually walk through the setups. So the system will have them in there unless I'm looking at the manual or walking through the setup. I don't recall what the upstage parameters are defaulted at.
Yeah, I believe, I know at least one. I know I believe like the droop's set to comfort. So a lot of those things are set by default to comfort. If you want to actually adjust the specific droop setting or whatnot there, you can certainly do so within the installer setup.
Yeah, and to that point, the timer settings, I believe, are defaulted to off. So if you want to upstage time in addition to droop, you have to select something. Our next question is, can you get ambient temperature from the internet for the thermostat, or do you still require a RedLink outdoor ambient air sensor for heat pump cutout? I can take that one and actually expand upon it a little bit. The current RedLink outdoor sensor is not compatible with T10. Later this year, we hope to have one should you want a local outdoor temperature sensor and want it to be wireless. The T10 as well as the T6 Wi-Fi thermostats can also use a wired outdoor temp sensor if you wish to have one installed, and or can make use of the internet reading for the zip code that the thermostat is registered to. The key differentiation between T6 and T10, however, is the outdoor temperature reading is used in the background on T6. It is never displayed on the screen. So if that's important to you or important to your homeowners to be able to see that T10 or to see that outdoor temperatures reading, then you would want to start with a T10 thermostat for that capability.
Yeah, great. Thanks for pointing that out, Chris. Great reminder there for sure.
That appears to be it. We can wait a minute or so and see if any other questions come in, but at this point, I think we are just about done. Fatima, you want to take us away?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you, Isaac and Chris, for answering those questions and providing another great training today. If you think of a question after the close of this training, please reach out to your local Resideo sales rep or send an email to homes.university@resideo.com, and we will make sure to get your questions answered. Training is something we are very passionate about at Resideo, and we want to make sure that you have access to more in-depth trainings on our products. Inside of our online learning platform, you will be able to find many in-depth technical and sales trainings. You can access this online training catalog by visiting the training page on our Resideo Pro website. The first time you access the online training catalog, you will be asked to create an account. And going forward, you will log into your account to access these trainings. Currently, we have 20 online learning modules available, including several modules on our humidification portfolio, the T10 thermostat, and the Prestige IAQ thermostat. These online trainings cover everything from technical and installation details and shows you how to identify the right customer to sell the products. We're very excited to add this online training catalog to our training offerings for all of you. If you're interested in more in-depth trainings, we encourage you to sign up for the Resideo Pro Portal account to access this training. Also, if you are a Resideo Perks member, you will receive training credit when you enroll and take these online trainings as well. To find out more information about our upcoming webinar sessions, please visit resideo.com/webinars. And if you search by HVAC or plumbing tabs, you will find the details for our upcoming sessions. Additionally, we record each of these sessions, and you can find those recordings on this same website by filtering for webinars with the label On Demand. One last reminder for those contractors who did not include your NATE ID on your registration form and you would like to receive credit for today's session, please send an email with your first name, last name, your NATE ID number, and the date of the session you attended to homes.university@resideo.com within 1 week of today's live webinar to receive credit for attending the training. Once our training session ends today, you will be prompted to complete a survey regarding our webinar session. Please take a few minutes to provide us with your feedback on the training you participated in today. We are very interested in your feedback on today's session, and we use your feedback to help us create future trainings. So your feedback is important. Finally, you will receive an email from us in a few days that includes some follow-up information on the products we reviewed today, as well as the link to the website for information on our future webinars. Make sure to join us next week on Tuesday, February 22nd at 2 p.m. Central Time for our next training session on our Resideo Brookman overview. Thank you all for joining today's Resideo webinar session. Have a great day, everyone.